Hey guys, it is Tuesday, a little bit after 1 o'clock, maybe 1:05 or so. My computer clock is off. It's always off. It either puts me several minutes in the future or several minutes in the past. Um, so I put the title in for today's talk. Sorry, my cat heard me talking, so immediately came running in. One of my cats. Um, Yoga and the art of running, or was it running and the art of yoga? I don't remember now. Um, and many people might be thinking that I'm going to talk about stretching for running, but what I'm going to do, hopefully going to do, is talk about um, the true art of yoga, the true science of yoga, the true spirituality of yoga, and maybe tie it together with running. We'll see. Now, stretching and the yoga asanas, the yoga postures, are a great way of stretching, can be extremely valuable for running. Oddly enough, as a runner, when I was racing, when I was doing ultras, I never stretched before a run. Now, I would do my yoga practice afterwards, mainly as something separate from my running. Yoga was its own thing. Yoga has always been its own thing for me, and it wasn't tied in with my running as this will make me a better runner or whatever. It had tie-ins. It had many benefits. Strong core really helped me recover from a tough effort, be it a race or a workout, and it still does. It's still great for the body. But the purpose of yoga, and let's see, I got my little guidebook here. It's a very simplified version of Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which is considered the holy grail of yoga. It is the essence of yoga. The purpose of yoga is the, let's get the words right from the beginning. This is from Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras. 2,000 years old, I think, somewhere thereabouts. It begins with the obvious. Now is the teaching of yoga. Yoga Sutra number 1. Yoga Sutra number 2. Yoga is to still the patterning of consciousness. So we can see right off the bat, yoga is a psycho-spiritual approach to life. It is stilling the mind. This is where it applies to running. Again, we can take it for all the physical benefits that it offers, which are many. Sorry. My 2 cats, which are sister cats, 11 years old, are hissing at each other. One prefers the downstairs, the other prefers the upstairs. Now they're both upstairs because they're hearing me have a conversation with you guys. So, yoga offers many physical benefits in ways that we don't even imagine. How it sort of polishes the energetic system of the body, the subtle physiology of the body. We can call it the chakra system. I prefer the subtle body, which contains all of the esoteric stuff in it. And yoga really helps to tone that subtle body, prepares it for holding a more refined type of energy. So now let's get into running and how that ties in, if I can tie it in. That running itself can become a form of yoga. Not in the way that we think of it. There's books out there, Running with the Mind and Meditation, and Running and Meditation. None of it really applies to meditation. Some of it might apply to mindfulness, but honestly, when you're out there running, um, especially if you're racing, it's not going to tie in together. Not that well, not for most of us. What helps is just being in nature, letting go. Now, when I run and walk early in the morning, um, well before the sun comes up. Right now, it's at least an hour and a half before the sun even hints its presence in the sky. Every so often, I run into a runner with headlamp on, handheld flashlight, sometimes even a chest light, all of them together. Heavy steps, banging on the path. I hear them at least 300 or 400 yards away, if not more. As I get closer, I hear the heavy breathing. Every once in a while, someone will stop me and give me a hint, give me a tip, that if I use the flashlight, I'd be able to go faster. I could run faster, which always makes me smile. Because I run at the exact speed that the morning allows me to. I run at the exact speed that the darkness allows me to. Not even a millisecond faster. Anything faster, this time of year, in the fall, we have walnut trees. Lots of black walnuts all over the place, all over the sidelining the trails. Beautiful trees, absolutely love them. And this time of year, the walnuts fall, and they are covered in that hard green chill. And of course, you step on them. And I run in barefoot shoes, which are going to limit the speed anyway. So if I step on one, I'm going to feel it. If I step on one hard, I'm going to feel it. So my stride is light. My steps they're not far. I'm not stretching out my stride. I'm not taking mincing steps. I'm going at exactly the pace and speed that the environment, the conditions allow me to go. When I run in the daylight, it's the same thing. Just because it's light, just because I can attempt to go faster, doesn't necessarily mean I have to go faster. We're conditioned to run in certain ways, that it has to be all out, all the time. That if we're not breathing hard, if we're not suffering, if we're not in that oxygen debt, if something isn't burning, then we're not serious athletes. We're not pushing it hard enough. We're not pursuing it hard enough. This is just my opinion. Running should be gentle all of the time. Unless you're racing, unless you're really good, if you have a chance of winning, of placing in your age group or whatever, unless running is a priority for you, or let's say racing is a priority for you, that there's something very important about coming in top 3, top 5, top 20. Almost life and death. All your training and effort goes into this. Doesn't for me. Not even a little bit. Now, I've pushed hard in a race. I've pushed hard in a race for many reasons. Maybe to win my age group. Maybe to keep, I'm ashamed to say, to keep a girl from passing me. Maybe to keep someone in my age group from passing me. Maybe to keep someone in an age group above me from passing me. Ego plays a role. And sometimes you want to go a little bit harder. Sometimes you want to go a little bit faster. It should still be gentle, meaning you're running within the capability that your body allows you to. And you have to find out what that is. I started racing really in minimal shoes. My first 50K, here's my racing career. It started when I was 45. And it started with ultra running. My very first race was 50K. Now, I wore regular trail shoes. It might have been Brooks Cascadia, which was probably everyone's very first trail running shoe during that time. Everyone wore them. I knew as soon as I started ultra running that I was going to do a 100-mile race. That was the goal, as much as I had a goal. But I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know when. I knew it was going to take some time. But I got my first 50K with about 3 months worth of training. 3 months of serious running. Before that, my running was all based on performance, all based on training for something other than running. So when I was training for kettlebell sport, I would run after my workout as sort of a recovery and for extra cardio. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, nothing major. Once a week I would do something, maybe 40 minutes or so. But then when I decided I wanted to race, when I wanted to do ultras, and ultimately I wanted to do 100 miles, everything shifted and I started training specifically for running. After my first 50K, I felt some aches and pains, and I was looking for a different way of getting that done. I wanted to incorporate more of a Taoist and yogic philosophy into my running. I started running mainly as self-therapy. My wife did a tour in Iraq. When she came home, she wanted a divorce. My mother was dying from Alzheimer's. My father had a stroke. Life was pretty difficult. The best that I ever felt was when I got out on the trails and I started spending hours on there. Training for that first 50K, I had run several weeks in a row. My top run was like 27, 28 miles. So I knew I was going to finish 50K. So it was connecting to nature. I felt great being out there. I still feel great being out there. I also thought it would be a way my wife and I could reconnect. And it did work in a way. We didn't stay married, but we stayed together in our own unique way. But I was pretty sore, obviously, after that first 50K. And I was bee stung. I think I was stung maybe 9 times after that race, during that race. Quite a way to break into the racing community. So looking for a different way of running, a different way of racing, something that, again, fit into that Taoist philosophy, more of a yogic style of running. And I started training and racing in minimalist shoes, Vibram 5 Fingers. I did my first 50-miler in Merrell trail gloves, and my body just felt better and better. Because you can't overstride in minimalist shoes, especially barefoot shoes. Maybe in like lighter racing flats you can, but in barefoot shoes, if you overstride, you're going to land on your heel and you're going to feel that impact all the way through your spine, all the way through your jaw, all the way through your head. You're going to feel every step, and your pace will change dramatically. Within just a few strides, your pace will start to change automatically. There's all kinds of books and workshops and things to teach you how to run, changing your pace, making it healthier, making it easier. I do recommend Chi Running, which is a great book. You can do workshops all over the world. I believe they have workshops. Or You can start running barefoot, just a little bit outside. And note how you run. Note the difference with how you run than when you put on those heavy shoes, and you'll be hooked. When you're running in those big, well-cushioned shoes, you don't feel the impact, but that doesn't mean you don't suffer the effects of the impact. When you run in minimalist shoes, you run light. Your stride is the perfect length. You're not overstriding. As long as you approach it smart, you reduce your chance of injury drastically. Most people don't do it smart. Most people jump right in and they go all out. I did. My first 2 weeks of wearing Vibram Five Fingers, I ran the Baltimore City Marathon, and boy did I suffer. I suffered during the race, I suffered after the race, and it probably took me several months to recover. I kept running, and I worked through my issues, but it was a hard lesson. So, adopt the pace of nature. Try to run with what we could call the Buddha smile. If you see the statues of Buddha, especially in the South Asian traditions, he has that very light smile on his face. The smile of enlightenment, the smile of awakening. If you put that on your face, get an image, copy it. Your physiology reflects your emotional state. Your emotional state can reflect in your physiology, both ways. If you put that smile on your face and you go out for a run, and you make sure you try to keep it there, and you try to do nasal breathing most of the time, as often as you're able to. Don't try to force the breath in, don't try to force the breath out. Just allow yourself to breathe through the nose, have that smile on your face, and you'll notice a difference in how you run. You might not be as fast as you were. Who cares? Why are you trying to be that fast? Now, again, if you're racing, you don't even want to be part of this conversation. It has nothing to do with racing. It has everything to do with getting the most out of running and feeling your best and reconnecting with nature. Another way of saying reconnecting is yoga. Yoga means yoke. That's why I thought of the conversation as yoga and the art of running. It's all yoga. So if you embrace that to begin with yoga being ceasing the patterns in the mind, union, you're in the right spot. It's the patterns in your mind, habits that we have that says, you got to run this way. You got to run faster. That person's going to pass you. Pick up your pace. Breathe harder. You're not breathing hard enough. You're not going fast enough. You're not doing this enough. Getting out of that mentality of always doing enough, or always doing more than enough, of always going hard. That whole go hard or go home. The whole I don't quit when my body tells me to. I quit when my mind tells me to, or vice versa, however it actually goes. It doesn't make sense. There's no split between your mind and your body. If one tells you to stop, it's the same thing. The mind and body are one thing only. Expressed differently, but still the same. And sometimes, you know what? It's good to stop and walk. You can always start running again. It's okay to go slow. It's okay to put that Buddha smile on your face, breathe through your nose, and just run for the sheer joy of motion. And your body will reflect that effort. You'll feel good. After you run, you'll think, I could have went 10 miles. I could have went 20 miles. Whatever. I always felt pretty good after my 100-mile races, after my 24-hour races. I always ran the next day. I was sore. Being sore doesn't necessarily mean you can't do something. I never was sore to the point where I felt injured. So you can do away with your GPS watch, although I like using one. Um, but don't worry. How fast would you think you were going if you didn't have that GPS watch, or if you didn't have a comparison? If you didn't have any of that comparison whatsoever, be it your own mind, or be it a GPS watch, or be it another runner, you would be content with the pace that you were doing because it felt good and you were happy. The indigenous, I'm not sure if I want to try that again, indigenous tribes of Southwest America used to train their warriors across the desert. You got one mouthful of water. Don't swallow it until you arrive at your destination. They had to breathe through the nose. They had to be composed. They couldn't choke on that water. They couldn't swallow that water. They had to have their mind in the right spot. So we could say running starts with the mind. Yoga starts with the mind. Running starts with the mind. So I had some questions from, let's see, Burpees Bandit. If I can find him. Where we talked about possibly, he asked me about some running questions and maybe having a conversation about it, and it seemed like a really good idea. I will see if I can find it. I should have had it up to begin with, so I apologize. There we go. Now, one of the things that he had mentioned is that he thought, because he's an infrequent runner, that maybe 10K is too ambitious for an infrequent runner. It depends. Corey Reese has written lots of books about ultra running, and he had a minimalist program that he only ran, I believe, twice a week. And he would finish almost all of his 100-mile races. And not every of his training runs was really, really far. I think like maybe only every once in a while. When I finally finished my first 100-mile race, I adopted a training program from Jeff Galloway, which all of my running friends, all of my ultra running friends, said it was a mistake because Galloway was, one, a marathon runner, and two, he was a road runner. Didn't do the trails, although he does in training. But it was an ingenious program. You ran twice a week and during the weekdays. And then you ran on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, usually just short miles. Every third week, you did double runs, Saturday and Sunday. And the double runs got longer and longer, but you had so much recovery time in between. By the end of my training session, I had done, I think 27 miles Saturday morning and 29 miles Saturday evening, and then Sunday, the next day, I think I did like 26 and 29. So I actually ended up with a 100-mile week with the vast majority of my miles, over 90, I believe, done in a 2-day period. So I knew my legs could handle 100 miles. I knew I was ready. And this was after 3 failed attempts at getting 100. I knew this time I had it dialed in, that I could absolutely get it. So, yeah, not too ambitious. 10K is not too ambitious, as long as you're setting the right pace. As long as you are running within your capability. The same way I was talking about running at the speed that the light and the conditions allow me to, it's the same with your body. Same exact thing. Run with what your body gives you. Don't dictate to your body, do this. That's a false dichotomy. Thinking I push through these issues that, my body responds to what my mind tells me to. Again, we're putting in that false separation, that there is a split between the body and the mind. It's the same thing. Body, mind, consciousness. Consciousness is infused through every fiber of the body. So any voice that's saying, I tell my body what to do, it's just ego. And the ego is an illusion of who we think we are. Doesn't belong in running. Maybe a little bit when we're racing. It's good to have that ego saying, man, don't let that girl pass you. It's absolutely okay for a girl to pass you. I'm always passed by all kinds of people in every race. Old people, young people, men, women, boys, girls, doesn't matter. But sometimes, use those tricks of the ego to go a little faster if you're racing. If you're out for a run, reconnect with spirit. Again, run with that yogic mind. Put that Buddha smile on and go out. That will dictate how fast you should be going. So he also mentioned foam rolling. Most of us make the mistake of foam rolling when we feel an injury coming on, when we're a little sore. Foam rolling is a great recovery modality. It doesn't have to be involved. Hit the IT bands, hit around the kneecaps, hit specifically the glutes, the hamstrings, and the calves, and you're good to go. It gets the blood flowing. It's a self-massage. Doesn't have to be complicated. It's not a big issue, but it helps you recover. Allows you to be more active, more fit. Breaks up a lot of inflammation. As well, Epsom baths. It's a great way of absorbing lost minerals. It does aid in recovery. Good thing to do. Let's see, and he had mentioned eating, drinking, fuel, schedule, pre-ultra, intra-ultra, post-ultra. You know what? I did most of my races on eating fruit or Tailwind, which is a great drink. It's a complete calorie, electrolyte, and hydration. I would mainly do the Tailwind. I forget how many calories per container, but enough to get me through every race. I've tried some other stuff, Hammer. I've tried doing races all on gels. Gels don't sit on the stomach too well. And I did my first 50 miler, nothing but fruit. You can't go wrong just fueling on fruit the entire way. Your body will use it exactly what it needs right at that time. I don't overcomplicate my eating or drinking or my fueling. I did at first, and then I realized, again, and maybe it's my perspective from Taoism and yoga, I just wanted to simplify it, which is why I like Tailwind. One drink, all I need, good to go. Or nothing but fruit, water, good to go. One thing that I found in an ultra race, though, specifically 50Ks, that last aid station when maybe I got 5 or 6 miles to go, some flat Coke. Because that combination of caffeine and sugar, the liquid, it just hits you and it gets you over that finish line. And it can settle a upset stomach if you're feeling nauseated as well. I know a lot of people have this many calories per hour to get you through the race. Again, it just got too complicated for me, so I don't worry about it. I know some people have an alarm that go off and it's time for a gel. If you're setting that right pace, everything falls naturally. Eat before you're hungry, drink before you're thirsty. There was a story, they called him the Ghost Runner. I don't actually remember his real name. He was from Great Britain. He was British, very talented runner. Actually, there was, might have been in the 70s that he was going to make the Olympic team. It turned out in post-war Britain, things were very hard. Jobs were hard to come by. He was young. He was hungry. His family didn't have enough food. So he started boxing professionally to put money on the table. Did fairly well. Didn't make it, too far up in the ranks, but enough that he helped feed his family. As he got older and he started working, discovered how much he loved running, training for boxing, and he started racing for fun. And at the time, British had very strict amateur rules, and they found out that he had been a professional athlete, sort of. He won a few dollars here and there in a boxing ring, so they disqualified him from racing. Couldn't race at all. So he started disguising himself, showing up at races in a fake mustache and a big hat and glasses, whatever. And right at the start line, he would take them off, throw them away, and he would win the race, and then he'd disappear. So he got that label of the Ghost Runner. He actually won Comrades Marathon. He was a great ultra athlete. Good marathon runner, but really great ultra athlete. Winning some of the top 50-mile races at the time. And he had a saying that stuck with me, that it's the pace that kills you, never the distance. Let me say that one more time, because it rings so true for me. It's the pace that kills you. We could say it's the pace that kills the legs, never the distance. Supposedly, Winston Churchill's son, during World War II, won a very large bet against he was an officer, against his men in his unit by running I think it was a 100K race and finishing it in under 24 hours. And he wasn't a runner. He wasn't built to be a runner, but he knew he could do it. He set the right pace, and he did it. My very first 100-miler, I was set for a sub 24-hour finish. Maybe close to 20, maybe under 20. I was hitting 9:40 pace, fairly strong, through mile 40. I had a friend take a photo of me, and he posted it on Facebook and said, here's a photo of a guy who just came in at the 40-mile mark, and he doesn't even look like he ran a mile. I felt great. Mile 66, the wheels came off the bus, and I limped in to the aid station and called it a day. Mile 60 something, mile 68, 69 maybe, because it was the pace that killed me. Had I been smart, had I slowed down, had I not gone out so fast, I would have finished my first 100, and I would have been happy with an over 24-hour finish, because it was my first 100. I would have gotten my buckle. It took me 3 other times to learn that lesson. So simplify it, and simplify it according to your pace. Be going a little bit slower, and I recommend walking, even in your training runs, even in your runs just for fun, because you're not out there to prove anything. Take a walk, enjoy the scenery, get in touch with nature. Your body doesn't know much difference between running and walking. It knows motion. The only difference it knows is the damage that you do by increasing your stride. If you start sprinting and you're pounding, if you're hitting those heels, then you're causing ankle, knee, hip, lower back, all the way all the way to the spinal column at the end of the head. All of it's being damaged by those heavy, heavy pounding steps that we take, that we can only get away with in big shoes. I don't do any special fueling. I never did. It's been, be honest, I was saying I don't do any special fueling. And it occurred to me, I haven't actually raced since 2019. I'm semi-retired from ultra. I always say semi-retired because I always think I'm in good enough shape to step in for a slow 50K. During my last few races, I actually took up power walking, which is race walking without worrying if my knees are straight. Race walking has very specific rules. And since I'm not competing in a race walking category, why bother with them? When I feel better, a slight bend in my knees. But other than that, it's all, my hips are aligned, I'm using the arm swing. And I did quite well race walking my last few ultras. I did a 50K plus. The course ended up being 36 miles, and I did it in 7:14, walking the whole thing, passing a lot of runners at the end. As they slowed down, my pace would stay the same, which is a natural thing for running. Your pace slows towards the end of the race, unless you're one of the elites. But with walking, I can maintain that pace as much as I want. I remember at the end of a race, once sprinting, deciding I wanted to run, I had walked, and somebody said, "You cheated, you ran at the end, get across the finish line." It's like, I'm allowed to do whatever I want to do in my race. Just because I start off walking doesn't mean I can't run. Just because I start out running doesn't mean I can't walk. Make every run your own. Put that Buddha smile on your face and make it what you want it to be, whatever that is. And every run will be a complete joy to do. So I didn't do any kind of special fueling beforehand. I didn't carb up. I rely on the power of my diet to see me through everything that I do, which means plants, 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 and plants. Nothing but. Maybe I would eat a little bit more, but you don't want to do anything, even on a training run, you don't want to do anything that might lead to stomach distress the next day. So I eat like I live. My diet is the structure of my day, what fuels me from one moment to the next. Doesn't need to be anything other than it is, which is also my recovery. Although it is fun after a race, my wife and I would go to our favorite vegan restaurant, and I would have vegan pancakes. I miss that about racing. I miss the vegan pancakes that I had afterwards. So that pretty much covers it all. My yogic philosophy of running, racing, walking, the Buddha smile, pace. I think you all know my feeling of shoes. I have run in Hoka's. I have run in some other bigger shoes. There's something to be said for them. You feel like you're running on big puffy clouds. It's not always good to be running on big puffy clouds. It does not do your body long-term good because you don't feel the accumulated damage. It's the same with boxing gloves. Used to be, bare knuckle fighting, you could only hit someone so hard or you'd break your hand. With the advent of those gloves, we were thinking we were protecting people. That just meant they could take more accumulated damage and harder blows over a longer period of time, causing more long-term damage. It's the same with shoes. You think you're doing your feet good, you think you're doing your back good, you're not. Just because you might be able to, you think you're extending your running career because you're comfortable, doesn't necessarily mean so. Some people might argue this, which is absolutely fine. I can only speak of my experience, as well as seeing tons of broken down runners through the years. And seeing some broken down runners who rejuvenated their running by switching how they run. The easiest way to switch how you run, you could do countless drills over and over again. Or you just learn how to run barefoot. Someone who can also talk about this, Sam Thrussell, who might have been a little over a year ago. He had started running in minimalist shoes, started running in barefoot shoes, zero shoes, and made a huge difference for him. And he did it pretty smart. He broke in very slowly. I think he might have done it a little too quickly, he would probably say. But for the most part, he did okay. So he is definitely worth someone get his opinion on that as well. And I think he would be pretty much in line with what I was saying. And walk. If you feel a stitch in your side, if you feel something ache in your knee, slow down, walk, enjoy. Take a breath through your nose, exhale through your nose, soak in the nature, say hi to a fellow runner, fellow walker, someone strolling by, pet a dog, smell a flower, hug a tree. You're there for a reason, and the reason is motion, being in nature. Doesn't matter if you're running all the way through, doesn't matter if you're doing some walking. What matters is, are you enjoying yourself? Are you, not to sound too hippie-ish, although I'm 100% hippie-ish, are you feeling the vibes? And I mean that literally. The vibrations of nature. Every tree has an individual vibration as well as the vibration of the forest. Can you pick that up? Can you feel it? I know Barefoot Burpees can. I know when he's training outside, when he's hanging from a tree, he is experiencing the treeness. I know Destiny Walks Forever will stop and touch a tree, will stop and hug a tree, and she is feeling the vibrational quality of the tree, of the forest as well. I know Duncan Walsh might say something similar. So enjoy it. Enjoy the experience. Running is what you make of it, not what we read in a book, not what someone tells us. I do walk breaks in almost all of my runs, no matter the distance, because I enjoy it. And when I walk, I do running breaks because I like running, and I throw it in. Make it your own. Make it your own thing. You don't even have to call it running. I don't like calling it running. I like calling it traveling. I like calling it being in motion, movement, whatever. When we label something, Kierkegaard, I think it was Kierkegaard, he's my go-to guy for every philosophical quote that I mangle. I believe he said, once you label me, you negate me. Once you label running, you negate it. Once you say this is running, this is how it's supposed to be, then you're stuck. You're stuck in that pattern. Break free. Throw all the patterns away. Every single one of them. And again, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, number 2, yoga is the stopping of the patterns of the mind, stepping aside. Everything we think about running is a pattern. Shed the patterns, step away from them, and make it your own thing. All right, that's it. We'll see. Not sure if it was worth anything, but it was fun to talk about. You know what? And it gets me thinking of hitting the trails again. I've mentioned this before. I talked about that with Richard Run Trails, that I'm sort of retired from ultra running, but I think about it. And he's like, you know, the racing community, trail running community, ultra community would take you right back in, which they would. That's one of the big draws. But the biggest draw is how that trail feels. How that trail feels beneath our feet. Absolutely amazing, especially when you're running in those minimalist shoes and you're actually feeling the trail. When you feel that branch or that rock or a stone or a root or whatever under your foot, you don't step as hard. You step very light, very quick. That's it. we'll end it here for the day. Maybe I just talked myself into racing again. We'll see. Everyone, enjoy. We'll see you tomorrow for some burpees. Take care.